There, if there is a rigid body which has a mass m and its center of gravity is located somewhere, then its moment of inertia I about the Cg is say this. You can find out a dynamically equivalent system. That means when a force is applied, it will undergo same motion, same linear acceleration and angular accelerations. If a torque is applied, it will undergo same angular acceleration. So what we are trying to do in the case of a dynamically equivalent system is we will use two masses with the m1 and another mass with the m2. So it should have same Cg. Last class I have drawn them separately. So now you can see that there is a rigid body like this. That is the equivalent means I am going to replace it by two mass system connected by a massless, very stiff rod. So when I put these two masses, automatically this is removed. So that is what your equivalence is. So that rigid body is replaced by this two mass system, and for two bodies to be dynamically equivalent, three conditions are to be met. The m1 plus m2, the mass of these two should be equal to the mass of the rigid body. The second condition is the center of gravity should be same. So m1 h1, so this distance is h1, this distance is h2. m1 h1 should be equal to m2 h2. So the center of gravity of the equivalent system is same. The third condition is m1 h1 square plus m2 h2 square should be equal to mk square. These are the three conditions. Suppose I want to model a rigid body into a two mass system. Look at the variables which are there. So the variables are your m1, m2, h1, h2. You have four variables. That is, you can have a mass m1, you can arbitrarily have any mass, you can have mass in m2, this is h1, h2. These are the four parameters that defines the equivalent system. What are the known things? The mass of the rigid body is known, its center of gravity position is known, its moment of inertia I is known. So you have four unknowns and you have three equations. So to start your dynamically equivalent system, we need to assume any one of this. If you assume any one of this, the rest three parameters can be obtained. That is how you can model. You cannot straight away have a unique model. Suppose I ask somebody to model this two equivalent system, they can come out with different models, because if you start m1 certain value, you will get other three fixed. Somebody can have a different value for m1, you will have a different set of other three values. Only caution is that the assumption that you make should be rational. I should not assume m1 such that it is greater than the rigid body mass itself. So this assumption you should not do. So if you do any other assumption, rational assumption, then automatically you will be able to get the other three so that you can get the dynamical equivalent system. Okay, any doubt? Then we talked about the concept of center of percussion and the center of oscillation. They are two pair points. So if I have a rigid body, so we discussed about this one. Now about center of percussion. By definition, it is a point on the rigid body wherein you apply a force, this point will not experience any reaction. So to show that, you can imagine something like this. Last class I used a knife edge which was fixed on a kind of a plate. And the rigid body, like a connecting rod, was suspended from this. So it was supported in the knife edge. If I give a force here, and this is your center of oscillation, if you apply the force, if it is not happens to be the center, corresponding center of percussion, then this particular knife edge or this thing will experience a reaction. Or I will say that if this particular thing, instead of being fixed on a particular place, I have a small roller or a bearing on which this is fixed. This knife edge is, for example, is not fixed. It is kept on a roller, so it is free to move. If you think of such a situation, if you apply a force, this is your center of oscillation, that is fixed. If you apply a force here, if there is a reaction, the whole thing will move, because you have a reaction applied to the support, whole thing will move. Suppose you vary this somewhere else, still it may be having a reaction. Suppose you apply the force in such a way, it is happens to be your center of percussion, then this will not move, but it will simply allow the thing to oscillate. That is the meaning of having a zero reaction. Okay? So, you have a point. This point is fixed, means center of percussion is fixed. Suppose I change this oscillation point to somewhere else, you will find a new place where the center of percussion lies. So, they are pair points. What we have seen is when you dynamically model a rigid body into a two mass system, and this is your CG, this is your H1 distance, this is your distance H2. We have proved that, because we have proved that the K square is equal to H1 H2 in the case of a dynamically equivalent system, or in case of center of percussion also. That means that if I try to model and put this in 2 points, then this will be your center of percussion and this will be your center of oscillation. So when you try to model a rigid body into a two mass system, one mass will be placed at the center of percussion, the other will be placed at center of oscillation. Vice versa. Suppose you take this as a center of percussion, this will be your center of oscillation. So they have a correlation. Dynamically equivalent system, center of percussion, center of oscillation, all of them have a correlation between them. So this particular thing I will give it as a project to somebody so that this will be demonstrated. Okay. Now the concept of simple pendulum and compound pendulum, we discussed that in the last class. Suppose I have a compound pendulum like this. This is supposed to oscillate about this point O, and your center of gravity is here. Then the distance between these two, I take, in the earlier calculation I have taken that as a length L, but here I will take that as H1 for a particular purpose. Now we have also discussed about a simple pendulum where the mass is concentrated. So I give this rigid body to some skilled worker, a blacksmith, so that he will melt it or he will reshape it so that the entire mass is concentrated like this. Okay. So this rigid body is reshaped to have a single ball concentrated mass. Then it is using the same center of oscillation, and you put it like this. So what this length is, say, L. Now when I concentrate like this, I have the freedom to remove this rigid body. Now that rigid body has been replaced by a simple pendulum. Now what will be the length of this simple pendulum? It is called, this simple pendulum, the idea of the simple pendulum, I can have this mass will be same as the original mass. Can I keep this L in arbitrary length? You can have, but I am imposing a condition that the period of oscillation of this simple pendulum and the compound pendulum should be same. Okay. So the length L is chosen such that the period of oscillation of the simple pendulum and the original rigid, that compound pendulum are the same. So in that case, if you write the equations, that is what is omega for the simple pendulum, it is given by root of G by L. Omega for the compound pendulum is given by root of G into H1 by K0 square. So you have to just substitute instead of L, H1 here, because we have taken that as H1. So this is the radiancy of a compound pendulum. This is the radiancy equation for radiancy of a simple pendulum. Now if I want to build a simple pendulum which will have a same period of oscillation, that L should be equal to K square by H1. But this K is the radius of gyration when you take this as your center of rotation. So this is about this particular point. Suppose you want to convert that into the radius of gyration about the CG, you can use the parallel axis theorem. Parallel axis theorem, which says that moment of inertia about any axis, that is now about the O, is equal to the moment of inertia about the CG plus mass of this body, mass of that body into that distance, that is H1 square in this case. Now this will be yielding me that m into K0 square, that is equal to m into KCG square plus m H1 square. So this will be K0 square is equal to K center of gravity square plus H1 square. Now I will substitute this k0 square in this equation. This k0 square I will substitute here, where now L will be equal to kcg square plus h1 square divided by h1. Now this L is slightly exceeding h1 if you say, and this distance, if I take that as h2, then L can be replaced by h1 plus h2, that is equal to kgc square plus by h1 plus h1. So h1 will be removed, can be cancelled out. So what we are getting is kg square is equal to h1 h2. Again you are looking at this equation where the radius of gyration about CG, square of that is equal to h1 into h2. So from this what we can say is, we can add one more point to your conclusion. When you take a rigid body like this, try to model that as a 2-point masses with M1 and M2. The place at which will be placed is, one will be your center of percussion, another will be your center of oscillation. Not only that, by the present conclusion, this length will be equal to the length of an equivalent simple pendulum. Okay, so they all have some correlation. So this length, what is the distance between the two lengths where these two masses will be placed? That will be the length equivalent simple pendulum. That is the pendulum which will have same oscillating period of the compound pendulum of this rigid body. And also where it will be placed, that point where it will be, one mass will be center of oscillation, other will be your center of percussion, vice versa. Okay, so these are some of the revelations about the dynamic modeling. This will be useful when we proceed for the later chapters, but this is a little difficult concept. You have to internalize it. You have any questions? Now, I am going to move to the next topic. The next topic is called balancing. What is balancing? We are not balancing of inertia forces. But it need not be even balancing of inertia forces, because inertia forces is about a single link. Each link it will suffer a different acceleration, so each link will be experiencing different inertia force. So we have to balance the net inertia force, that's called shaking force. Now this toy, as we have discussed, so it oscillates, okay, Now why it is oscillating is because there is something inside this arrangement as a linkage where the mass is not distributed at the center. It is the mass is concentrated away from the center. So this is your rotation as it the pivot point, and as it rotates you have to give a centripetal force as a reaction, because Newton's law says that there will be a action and reaction, equal and opposite reaction that will be applied to the foundation, the base. So that's why whatever the structure is trying to support is getting this force. So that is responsible for shaking of this. So if you have a machine, we are discussing about the machines. If your machine is having the inertial forces, the net inertial force, the shaking force, that will be transmitted to your foundation or the frame. That is to be connected to the ground so that it won't shake. So how to avoid this shaking? It shakes. How to avoid shaking? Arrested or rigidly mounted. Okay, when you rigidly mount it, that forces are transferred to the foundation, or the forces are supposed to give the necessary force required for accelerating this. Okay. Now when you think of machines, not only the inertial forces are acting, there are other type of forces. Like for example, if you think of the internal combustion engine, you have a piston, cylinder and this. When the engine is working, when it is running, inertial forces will come in these links. They will be transferred to the foundation. Apart from that, you have a force, gas pressure force. Because the engine is not an ornamental item which is supposed to rotate for the mechanics of machine purpose. It is supposed to produce a useful work. So it is a thermodynamic, the machine where it produces the gas explodes and produces a productive force. So when a gas pressure force which is acting, that is also a force acting on the machine apart from the inertial forces. But you look at this kind of forces, whether that will be transmitted to the foundation. You see whether the gas pressure force will be transmitted to the foundation. Foundation is here. This is the engine crankcase, the whole frame that will be mounted to the base, to the ground. Whether these forces will be gas pressure forces will be transmitted to the foundation. If you think of a press which is here mounted onto the foundation, so there may be a hydraulic ram which is applying a force on an object to deform, and this is the base. The force is applied here, and here you have another force which is, this object is squeezed because of these two forces. Here you have a reaction, this is the positive force which is applied. So this is your hydraulic cylinder. So this is the additional force. The question is whether these forces are transmitted to the foundation. This gas pressure force, will it be transmitted to the foundation? Of course, the shaking force, the inertial force will be transmitted to the foundation. Whether this type of forces will be transmitted to the foundation, if you ask that question, you look at this. As a total free body, if you take the pressure force which is acting on the piston, equally acts on the cylinder head. So, the pressure force P acting downwards on the piston will equally act opposite on the head. So, they will be cancelling each other at any moment. Any instant they will be cancelling. Whatever the gas pressure forces acting on the side of the wall, they all be cancelling each other. So, when you think of a machine, forces are acting on the machine, not all the forces be transmitted to the foundation. Such forces like here the gas pressure force of an engine is not transmitted, will not be transmitted to the foundation. Here in a press, the force in a press will not be transmitted to the foundation. So, these forces you need not bother about when you are thinking of the foundations. So, these forces are called internal forces. What is called as these internal forces, there is a force closure. So, from here to here, if you think of forces are getting cancelled. So, in such cases, you need not bother that it is going to be transmitted to the foundation. So, you need not think of balancing such forces. But what are the forces that need to be taken care is essentially this sagging force. Like here what we are looking at is a mass M1 at radius located at R1. When it is rotating with omega, you know that this, if you are thinking of only one link which is rotating like this, then you can think of the inertial force which is transmitted to the foundation. Whatever the foundation experiences, that will be equal to M1 R1 omega square. Is it not? So, acceleration is R omega square, centripetal acceleration, and mass will give you the force. What is this nature of this force? We are now essentially looking at rotating system. So, the topic, one of the subtopic of balancing is balancing of rotating out of balance mass, or the out of balance can be replaced by unbalanced masses. We in this topic also have balancing of reciprocating masses, balancing of complexly moving masses. Need not be rotating. The next topic will be reciprocating. The other topic will be combination of both, the complexly moving objects. Now we look at the rotating masses only. So there is a mass M1 which is away from the center R1. It produces an initial force of M1 R1 omega square. How to? This will obviously produce, it will be transmitted to the foundation. If we want to reduce or eliminate this, our objective will be to eliminate but if you are not able to eliminate it, at least reduce it. So how can you do that? The answer to that is, you know that this is what you are trying to do is a force M1 R1 omega square. That is to be cancelled. Going to the engineering mechanics, a force can be balanced by another force. That force is called equivalent force. If you are introducing a force which will balance the resultant force, that is called equivalent force. So you have to introduce a equivalent force. That equivalent force can be applied by an external means, or in a simple way change the configuration of this linkage such that you introduce a mass m at the radius r. So this is out of balance mass. You are going to introduce a mass to remove that or eliminate that shaking force. Just this is a balance mass. You introduce a balance mass to balance it. Now what will happen if you look at these two as a system? The inertial force of this will be in this direction. That will be given by m1 r1 omega square. The inertial force of this balance mass is m r omega square. If you choose carefully such that these two are equal in magnitude, they are opposite in direction because they are rotating, they are on either side of the rotating thing, so there the center is here, center of rotation here, they will produce opposite forces. So if you choose such that m r omega square is equal to m1 r1 omega square, then these two forces will also be equal in magnitude. They are already opposite in direction. If you are introducing exactly in the same line, they will be collinear. So according to the law of equilibrium, these two forces will cancel each other. So here in this equation can be further simplified in the sense that omega is common for both because it is on the same shaft that is rotating. So mr is equal to m1 r1. If you have such a system, then you see that there is no net shaking force. The shaking force is completely eliminated. So this one will rotate. It will not produce any unbalance. Okay, so that is the basics of the obtaining a balance of a rotating mass. You have any doubt? So here I have a system where you have 4 rotors in which purposely I have introduced some unbalanced mass, and I can put it in different orientation as well, so you can have a feel of it. So it is not on the board, you can feel when you rotate it, your hand will feel that the inertial effect of it. Okay, so you can set it at different orientation so that you can create different type of unbalances and see the reaction. So this is available. So I will put it, as course of time, I will give it to you so that you can have a feel of this unbalance. Anyway, in the laboratory you have a experiment which is called a static and dynamic balancing. So this thing you will be able to perform the experiment and confirm their effects. That is how your theoretical discussions here will be reinforced by experimentation. Now, okay, you have something like an unbalance here. Should we purposefully put this unbalance so that it creates a trouble? Not necessarily. We will discuss what are the sources of unbalance. How unbalance will be created in a real machine? It could be due to geometry. This unbalance, as you see, is a unequal distribution of the mass about a rotating center. If the center of mass and rotating system are coinciding, obviously this R1 will become 0, so no problem. So unequal distribution of the mass is the problem that could be arising due to the geometry of your machine element. For example, you know that in a shaft, to attach a pulley on this, pulley or a gear on this, we have a small slot, that is keyway. You have a keyway, it is cut. To attach something on this, you put a key. If you look at the geometry of the shaft, if this is the center of rotation, I should not be using this center of rotation because it is a two-dimensional thing. But if you are talking about a three-dimensional actin, you have the axis of rotation. Then you can think of the axis about which the masses are uniformly distributed, that will be shifted this side. So they are not going to coincide, so this will be producing an unbalance. So your geometry, like putting a keyway, may create unbalance. Number 2, another situation is when you are in manufacturing, the unbalance may be created. Suppose you have a rotating disc or rotating rotor, you are using a casting process to do that. To manufacture it, you are using a casting process. If there is a void, because when you are pouring a metal, the gases are entrapped, there may be a void inside. If there is a void, then the center of mass will be shifted on the other side. It need not be void always, it may create a problem. There can be something like inclusions. Say some foreign material gets into it when you are putting the casting. Say the sand casting, the sand may fall and get into this. It could be an inclusion in the casting process, may create such unbalances. Either it could be a void or an inclusion. Or suppose you are doing a welding of a rotor. In the welding, the position of this weld need not be uniform. A slight in the starting or stopping place or somewhere middle, the deposition of the weld around may not be uniform, that may create the unbalance. So by geometry, by design it may have an unbalance, or in manufacturing it may come, or in operation it may come. It may be perfect when you are starting the work, but during the operation, I have a rotor, you are studying turbo machinery, you have maybe blades, you have fan blades are there. In thermal power plants, you have a fan, two kinds of fans in a boiler. One is a ID fan inducing the draft, another is a FD fan, forced draft. Forcing the draft, the impeller used for forcing the draft will take the air from the atmosphere and push it. But induced draft, ID fan, will handle the exhaust gases. The exhaust gases will have the fine ash particles that may build up here. Ash build up. So your rotor to start with may be perfectly balanced. In operation, like your FD fan, the ash buildup may not be uniform. There is no control on your ash buildup, may not be uniform. So that may create unbalance. Or you think of erosion of blades. That may not be uniform. So these things in operation may create unbalance. Another problem is, suppose I have a shaft. The shaft is initially perfect, but if there is a overloading of the equipment, the shaft may slightly bend. In your operation, you have overloaded that, the shaft would have bent, then it will create unbalance. So when you think of an unbalance things, it may come in engineering applications and in your machine, maybe by geometry itself, by the design, you can avoid that design problem. Or in manufacturing it may come, or in operation also it may come. So it can come in these different ways. So it is not those particular unbalances are idealized to be concentrated here, and we are going to treat like this. Okay? Now the question is this the unbalance, whether it is always unwanted. Is there any place where this unbalance is wanted, preferred? So you are saying, talking about unbalance, I am saying the balancing is to remove the effect of unbalance. There are some places where unbalance is welcome. Are used beneficially in cell phones. The cell phones, you are supposed to put it in a silent mode. So when you get a call or something, it will vibrate. You are experiencing this vibration. How these vibrations are created? So there is a very tiny motor. So that the tiny motor in the shaft, there is a considerable unbalance. So that is the very tiniest motor I have seen. It can be half of the nail size. Possible, I'll get it next class. It has a small unbalanced rotor. So when this rotates, it produces the inertial forces, the shaking forces. That is now, it is preferred. Okay? So are used in an effective way in cell phones, and there are some vibratory shakers. The vibratory shakers for sheaving or transporting material where you want to create such a vibration. Unbalance is one method. It is not that I always say that unbalances are not welcome. In some places it is definitely used in an effective way. Like your friction, whether it is required or an unwanted one, it depends. Okay? So you require a very high friction between the tire and the road, but you require a very low friction between the axle and the wheel. Okay? So it changes in one component itself. So you have to exploit that situation. Now by looking at it, you can say there are, for balancing it, MR is equal to M1 R1. Now you can say few conclusion, or you can inference few things. One of the thing is, when it comes to the unbalance or balancing, it is not the absolute value of M1, of mass or radius. Absolute value of mass or radius is not a criteria. When I think of a balancing, the mass, absolute value of mass, absolute area of radius is not a criteria, it is a product. The product of mass and radius is important. So what is important here in balancing? It is not a mass separately or radius separately, but it is the product of these two is important. You can balance M1 R1 by a larger mass with a shorter radius or a smaller mass at a longer radius. So it is not the absolute value of M or absolute value of radius is important, but it is a product of this is important. So unbalance is always expressed as gram centimeter. Unit of unbalance. The unit of unbalance is expressed in terms of gram centimeter. So that means that the product which is important is not the mass or this thing in isolation. The second inference that we can make is that the balancing is independent of speed of operation. Here you see the condition, omega is removed. So if I balance a system for at 5 RPM, it is equally valid for 50 RPM, it is equally valid for 5000 RPM or 50,000 RPM. Okay? So it looks from this condition that is independent of the speed of the operation. But there is a caution, it is not always valid. Okay, this is for, from this equation it appears to be like this. Generally for a certain range of speed it is valid, good. Okay, so this particular inference is limited to a range of speeds. This is valid for most of the cases, but is limited to a range of speed. It is, for example, there are situations where the shaft, if the shaft is a mechanical element, if the shaft retains its shape throughout the range of speed in consideration, the balance will be holding good. Suppose this shaft itself bends like this. Depending on the speed of operation, the shaft also can bend and take a form. It can be like this, it can at different speeds, it can be even take a multi-mode shapes. In that case, whatever balancing you did with this shape is not applicable to this. So it is speed dependent when you go for a higher range of speed, not for this. So balancing of high speed machines like your jet engine of an aircraft is very critical, because the operating speeds are so high, the shaft itself will bend and take a shape. So we will be discussing that in the vibration. So for normal range where the shaft is not deflecting, the deflections are this thing, then it is called a rigid rotor. It considered as a rigid rotor. Here these things are called a flexible rotor. So balancing of a rigid rotor and flexible rotor if you take, they are entirely different. Flexible rotor balancing is very difficult. Okay, with this we stop.